In the time of Harun al-Rashid, and in times, my dear brothers, of these people, they used to give income support 20 days in advance. SubhanAllah. Nowadays you get it 2 weeks in arrears. Not that I'm on income support or job seekers allowance. We are on dawah seekers allowance and jihad seekers allowance, you know. We take the jizya, which is our haq anyway. The normal situation, brother, really, is to take money from the kafir, isn't it? So this is normal situation. They give us the money, you work, give us the money. Allahu Akbar. We take the money. Hopefully there's nobody from the DSS listening to this particular... They won't be able to recognize the voice anyway.
Claire MacDonald and Phil Williams here with you through till 8:30. The Sun has secretly filmed the radical Islamist preacher Anjem Choudary calling David Cameron and Barack Obama satanic and saying his followers should stop working and live off benefits, what he calls jihad seekers' allowance.
Democracy, freedom, secularism, the parliament, all the MPs and the presidents, all the kufr ideas, everything that people worship. We got to believe that they are bad, and we got to reject them. Reject them with our tongue. Reject them with our heart. And our heart have hatred towards them.
And we can speak to Anjem Choudary now. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
So just first things first, was that you?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Why do you speak of your followers needing to have hate in their hearts?
You see, what happened, in fact, is I gave a speech, or I gave a couple of speeches about the Islamic belief, and there are various elements to the Islamic belief. One of them is to reject anything which is worshipped and obeyed and followed other than Allah, and I was giving that in detail. And basically I was explaining those things which people worship nowadays. Some of them are, for example, idols, others are ideas and thoughts. And a basic tenet of Islamic belief when you become a Muslim is to say, which is something which we call the Shahada, which is La ilaha illallah, that we worship nothing and obey nothing and follow nothing other than Allah. So it was a mere explanation. Now what happened is obviously one of the reporters had come and he asked a whole range of questions about suicide bombing, about jihad, and obviously he was completely ignored. So they kind of misconstrued something and took it out of context. But, we have...
So let's just be clear then, because obviously we can't misconstrue you now because you're live on the radio. So yeah. To be clear, this line about your supporters needing to have hate in their hearts, I'm interested in that. What do they need to hate?
Well, as a Muslim, you see, we have a basic concept called wala and bara, meaning to ally and to disassociate. You must ally with everything which is the Quran and the Sunnah, Sharia, Islam, the messengers and everything which is enjoined in the revelation. And you must have a hatred towards everything which is against the revelation. So, for example, people who legislate laws, people who, for example, legislate gambling and alcohol and pornography and homosexuality, these things, as a Muslim, you must have hatred towards in your heart. You cannot have in your heart love towards something and hatred at the same time. So the loving for the sake of God and the hating for the sake of God is a basic, if you like, tenet and not of Islam.
Is it not a basic tenet of Islam to show tolerance and love to fellow people?
The tolerance and love for what God enjoins, and not tolerance for something which is against the revelation. No.
But doesn't the Quran say that God will be the ultimate judge?
But nobody is, if you like, judging people here on the Day of Judgment. But God.
Well, you are. You're judging. For example, you just mentioned homosexual people. You say that you have to hate homosexuality.
Wait a second. God will judge on the hereafter. But he says clearly in the Quran that he hates the disbelievers, that he hates, for example, the act of homosexuality and things like that. In this life, what we do is we ask people to embrace Islam. We ask people to leave these kind of things. And I don't think you'll find that there's much difference in Christianity and Judaism towards these things. At the end of the day, it's what you have in your heart is one thing, but how you act and obviously what we do in this life is something which, obviously God will account us for on the Day of Judgment. But we will invite these people to embrace Islam.
What did you mean by the jihad seekers allowance?
When I was training to be a lawyer, we used to say the Department of Stealth and Total Obscurity for the NHS. as a joke, and as a joke in this talk, you know, to lighten the atmosphere, I said jihad seekers allowance. But nobody is claiming income support or jihad seekers allowance or, job seekers allowance, you know, as it is known, in order to wage war against the British. I mean, this is completely absurd because they found nothing else in my lecture.
Didn't you in your lecture encourage your followers to not work because you say that is slavery?
Not at all. You know, in my lecture, there were doctors, there are lawyers, there are accountants. The vast majority of them are businessmen.
But I've got a clip of you.
Wait.
No, because I need to listen, I'll let you speak, but I need to clear up what you said and what you didn't say, because I would dreadfully hate to misquote you. There's a clip of you where you say they wake up at 7, they go to work at 9, they work for 8-9 hours a day, they come home at 7 o'clock, watch EastEnders, sleep, and they do that for 40 years of their life, and that's called slavery. And then you encourage your followers not to do that. Is that true?
You know, well, what I said was in the context of a case that happened recently, which was about a woman who was forced to work without any payment. And I said, look, what's happening, in fact, is that the Court of Appeal called that slavery. And I said, in fact, what happens is that many people, in fact, work and their income does not meet their everyday living expenses. I said, this is modern-day slavery because we live in a society, you know, where we have rampant inflation and the boom and bust kind of nature of the economy. It was a lecture about the economic system. And I said, what we need is a society where you can have confidence and where you can work and your money actually goes as far as paying your bills. And
so you weren't encouraging people to stay on allowances and
not at all. I mean, in fact, in Islam, it is recommended to trade. You see, and I personally don't claim JSA, despite what the media may say. I may not tell you what I do, but I qualified as a lawyer. I do something which allows me to, to function. But the point is,
why are you so mysterious about what you do?
What I say, well, it's my business. What I say in a lecture.
Is it because you're on benefits?
I just said to you, I'm not on JSA. The point is, what I say in a jovial manner.
Do you claim housing benefit?
In a lecture, bear with me. What I say in a lecture in a jovial manner, when I'm talking about the economic system, and which is relevant to what the people are facing nowadays, should be taken, in the context of the whole lecture. If you want to listen to the whole lecture, you're welcome. But if you want to
people listening to you right now, Mr. Choudary, they will want to know whether someone who is preaching hate is claiming benefits.
Well, it's irrelevant for them because you see, sadly, what happens.
But it's not really irrelevant if you're saying that. If you're comparing, let me explain it to you. If you're comparing David Cameron to the devil, and then you are taking money from the state, that is a contradiction, is it not?
Well, if you want to ask me the question, then of course that.
Well, I did ask you the question. I asked you whether you were claiming benefits, and you wouldn't answer the question.
Allow me to answer the question. Then.
Okay. Let me ask you the question from the start. Then, are you claiming housing benefit?
I gave a lecture about the economic system, and it is irrelevant what I do for a living. I don't claim job seekers allowance. The Prime Minister, I think you'll probably find out, also claims child benefit, because I think everybody in this country probably gets that unless you have a certain amount of wage. But the point is that,
So you receive housing benefit and child benefit, do you?
Who told you that I get housing benefit? The point is it's irrelevant.
I'm asking you a question.
Benefits. You see, the problem is that when you lose the argument, you see, then you start to talk about somebody's employment. Let's talk about the argument. Why divert away from the ideology and the argument, which you've obviously lost, and now talk about something personal? If you have a cogent argument, then give me a counter argument. Don't start talking about.
I'm just intrigued as to why you're being so shadowy about how you earn an income.
It's irrelevant because the point is, you see, if I was doing something illegal, I'm sure the police and the authorities would have done something about it by now. The point is, what I'm doing is perfectly legal. At the same time, I'm raising my voice. If you don't like that, then you should counter the voice. You shouldn't talk about somebody's employment. A lot of people in this country are unemployed. That doesn't mean they don't have a voice, and they can't vote, and they can't have a say on what's going on.
Thank you very much for talking to us. That's Anjem Choudary.
In the time of Harun al-Rashid, and in times, my dear brothers, of these people, they used to give income support 20 days in advance. SubhanAllah. Nowadays, you get it 2 weeks in arrears. Not that I'm on income support or job seekers allowance. We are on dawah seekers allowance and jihad seekers allowance, We take the jizya, which is our haq anyway. The normal situation, brother, really, is to take money from the kafir, isn't it? So this is normal situation. They give us the money, you work, give us the money. Allahu Akbar. We take the money. Hopefully there's nobody from the DSS listening to this particular. They won't be able to recognize the voice anyway.